All right, welcome back to the FLA podcast. And today is FLA number 36, where we're going to be talking all about successes in your first year as a real estate agent and different ideas that you can use in your first year as a real estate agent to grow your business and succeed, basically. So I'm very honored to be bringing on another guest of mine here who's also an agent that is on my team that I'm working with. She's been here for a year and she's doing really well in her current business as well. She just got her first listing. Congratulations, Deborah,
Thank you.
on that. So, yeah, without further ado, I want to bring on my guest for today, Deborah. Deborah, how's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, no problem at all. I've been wanting to kind of interview you a little bit here on my podcast for a little while now because I know you're doing a lot, not just in the real estate sales space, but you're also getting your mortgage license and you have a lot of interest in uh, educating others on financial literacy and building wealth as well. So, really want to get like your perspective on different things going on in real estate and kind of your experience as well. So, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself first and kind of tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got into the industry?
Okay. So, hi, my name is debra.sheard, and I have just recently retired in October of 2021, so last year, so almost a year, as a public school educator. I began my career as a teacher, and I retired as a superintendent of schools after 25 years. And I think with the transition from coming from a public school educator and going into real estate, it's all about relationships. And that's one of the things, as an educator that we always had, building that relationship, obviously with our students, but more importantly with their families. And when I say families, only because that nuclear family has changed so much in the public education arena. So one of the things in the state of New Jersey, where I've worked for the last 25 years as a public school educator, is we were really promoting the idea of financial literacy in our middle schools to get students to begin to look at the economics and to try to build that bridge as far as the academics and being financially prepared. In most of the districts that I worked in and where I retired were in our urban centers. And what we found is, unfortunately, there was a lot of poverty in those centers. And one of my goals and mission, always as an educator, is to try and help families try to build that generational wealth. So real estate, when I went into it and got my license in November of last year, was to tie that knowledge that I have as an educator with real estate to try and educate folks on financial literacy and using it through the role of a real estate agent. So the first month, I got my license in December. I joined eXp in January of this year, of 2022, and had my first sale, my first transaction in January and closed in February. So that was really, really quick, but I learned a lot during that time because the whole thing was about relationships, as working with my buyers at the time and trying to help them through that process of, how do you get a loan? What are some of the things that you need to qualify and then be pre-approved, and walk them through that process. Then I had my second transaction, another buy in May. And it was the same thing with a young couple, minority couple, again, walking them through that process. So I thought, boy, I'm doing a lot of education on the financial side as far as the loan side, and almost as much on the real estate side as far as borrowing. So I did some little research and I decided, you know what, I'm going to look and see what it takes in order to acquire my mortgage license as what they call mortgage loan originator. So I did some Google searches and I see they have something called a hybrid agent, which is someone who holds both their real estate license and the mortgage loan originator license. So in July of this year, I sat for the exam, which was It was crazy. Nothing. I mean, it made the real estate exam seem like a piece of cake. I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. But I was successful, passed it on the first time. So right now I am considering being both a what they call a hybrid agent. So I will be continuing to do both, always keeping in mind about the rest of the laws that that I can't um, actually originate a loan for someone that I'm also their agent. So
Right.
so that's where I'm at. So right now, my mission is just helping folks and families build generational wealth through real estate. And now I see that there's multiple avenues that I can use as far as having both licenses now and just really working with folks for them to be able to get what we call that American dream. And there's different pathways in order to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. And it's awesome. And I think you mentioned something in there. We might want to visit this a little bit, but you said that in your educational kind of district, that you guys started educating others in financial literacy starting in middle school. I think that's
Well,
very early.
that's part of the that's part of the curriculum
Right.
for the state of New Jersey. So we have
Right.
what's called New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Yes, New Jersey Student Learning Standards. And that's in I believe it might be sixth grade, but we
Wow.
begin to provide that education for students to understand about the financial literacy, to understand it.
That's
Yes.
that's great. I think, I
Yeah.
mean, that's very early, and I think it's great that you guys are starting, younger children on that, a little bit
Right.
earlier,
Hmm.
on financial literacy. I think sixth grade, in my opinion, is not too late at all. I think it's the perfect,
No,
yeah.
I think it's a good time. You've gotten the basics of literacy, how to read and comprehend, and you've gotten some of the basics of mathematics. So now we're beginning to talk about the economic and the buying power. And with so many students, you know, getting maybe not they're not getting allowance, but if they are, having some kind of summer job or something like that, they can begin to say, now instead of just spending it on the latest whatever gadget, we can begin to put this money into purchasing some kind of investment. And
Right.
how do we move that forward?
Right, exactly. That's
Hmm.
awesome. And then, gadgets, they always run out. They always have their
Yeah.
shelf life, but investments don't, right? Investments will
Hmm.
will actually support you. And the longer the shelf life, the better. So
Right.
um that's great. So I think what I want to ask now is, you mentioned that relationships was a big part of kind of helping you kind of get started as an agent. And, it's definitely one of the most important things. And I think a lot of agents begin realizing that, as they get into the business. How does kind of, in your opinion, the educational side uh, play into it as well? Because I know a lot of what it is, working with clients is educating buyers and educating sellers, and that's how the relationship is built. Even when you're talking to somebody who you might not have a pre-existing relationship, how have you kind of approached that situation of educating somebody on the process, or on the process of buying or selling real estate?
Okay. So the first thing I ask them is, what is your goal? What type of home do you want to purchase? And then I don't really talk about what your budget. I don't start with what your budget is. And unfortunately, sometimes I know that, I joined a team because I knew nothing about my whole adult career was in education. So I just, you know, I wanted to find out what exactly, again, about building a relationship, getting to know your customer. And that's what we did in education. You always want to know, you know the children because they're right there in front of you, but you need to find out what are the family, what is that dynamic, what's going on, and how do you do that? And we do that by asking those questions, but also being what we call an active listener. So what I try to do with all my clients, with all the leads I get, is I ask them, what is your goal? What is the type of home that you want to purchase? And then we sort of work backwards. So this is your what you want. Now, how do we get to that? So if you say that you want this house that's, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, whatever, and that budget is, in the list price is $500,000. Now we need to work and talk about where you're at financially. what is your career? Do you have parents or relatives or something like that who are going to, gift you that down payment and help you purchase it? Do you have a cosigner? Things of that nature. We begin to talk about that afterwards. But first of all, I need to know what your goal is, because I have found when you begin to say that, you only make $50,000, but you want a $500,000 house, that sort of erases people's goals, thinking that they'll never acquire it. And I don't want to diminish people's goals. I want them to fight for those dreams. So what do we need to do? What is the preparation? So maybe we won't go out and look for a house in the next 6 months, but maybe for a year from now, when you've gotten to that level of income, we can revisit it. But we won't eliminate that goal. So I think that's where my educational background really helped, again, as far as building those relationships and always empowerment. And I think that's one of the things that is important, is empowering people. And even as adults, I think sometimes adults need to have some of that reassurance that, yes, I'm capable of doing this. I might be a 50-year-old, maybe purchasing my first house, but these are all the things that were sort of keeping me from getting to that. But now I need to do that, or I'm
Right.
capable of doing that.
Yeah, and that is a great way, I think, for agents to continue the relationship, because I believe a lot of agents kind of in the industry, especially today with some of the different things going on in
Hmm.
the market where everybody's a little bit on edge.
Right.
Um, they like to tend to go to the budget or go to,
Yes.
how much
Yes.
can you afford,
Or
and then right, and then they'll
right.
toss the client to the side
Right.
if they can't afford something, versus in your
Right.
situation you start with a goal. And I think this is what most agents should be doing, or all agents should
Yes.
be doing,
Yes.
is starting with the goal, empowering people, because that way, like you said, a year later, maybe it might take a year of work, and when they're ready, you're still the agent that they're going to go to. So in the end of the day, that empowerment, that value that you've built with this person,
Hmm.
kind of in their vault of credit, for an individual, has now benefited you as well as the real estate agent.
Correct. Just one of the things that, I'll every now and then I might get a buyer who'll say, well, what do I need to do in order to get this loan? And I said, well, that's not the conversation I would have with you, because I'm not your loan officer. I
Right.
said, but when you meet with that loan officer, let them know that this is what you want, and let them figure out how this is your goal. They need to figure out how they're going to help you meet that goal. It shouldn't be you're not figuring out. Let them figure out how to
Right.
help you get to that place.
Right, definitely. There's so many professionals out there in the space, right? And that's kind of the part that they play in these transactions is,
Right.
supposed to be the ones stepping in and helping other people solve their problems. And like
Right.
you said, empower them, to give them the options that they can choose from,
Correct.
because I think that's the biggest issue with a lot of people who can't, purchase a home, or they feel like they can't purchase a home,
They
is
can't
because
purchase a home.
right.
Right.
Right. It's because they don't know the options that exist.
Correct.
The information isn't as prevalent as, what's the most trending thing on TikTok these days, or something like that. So,
Right. Right. Correct. Yes.
but yeah. So I do want to kind of talk a little bit more about, you being a hybrid agent. I think that's it's a great term as well. So, for those people out there who are not familiar with what goes into being a hybrid agent, or how they can become a successful hybrid agent, how are you, structuring your business now, being both, in the mortgage space and also in the real estate space, and how they can work together in conjunction, in synergy, to help, you build up, a platform for people.
Okay. So currently I'm not doing both. I'm still waiting for my license here in the state of New Jersey. It's taken a little time, apparently, like with everything here. But the way I will have it structured, again, is a hybrid agent. So as I said in the beginning, a hybrid agent is someone who holds both their real estate license for their state, and then the mortgage loan originator license. Now, what's interesting about the mortgage loan originator is that it's from the organization of the NMLS. So it's the nationwide mortgage licensing system. So you can originate a loan in any state, provided that either the brokerage or the bank that you are employed by has a branch office within that state. So that's how that works. Um, so one of the things I like about that is you have as a hybrid agent, I understand the procedures and the process for helping buyers and sellers with their home. Either buying, looking for a home or trying to sell their home. And then on the mortgage space, helping buyers, these are the requirements that you need, and we can have that conversation. And then for sellers, again, if they're looking to purchase another house, but they need a contingency, they must sell this house before they go into the next house, then we can talk about bridge loans and other kinds of programs to help them in that space. So working on the mortgage loan originator side, though I can't be their agent, the real estate side, I can have those conversations because I understand that process. So if I'm working with someone who's looking to buy a home, and we can have that conversation, I would start the conversations with them. What type of home are you looking to purchase? Tell me about the home you want to buy. So I will hear all that before we actually talk about money. Then we begin to talk about, we'll be filling out that, because I can get all that information from the credit application that they filled out, the loan application. And then we can talk about what are some of the things they need to do to prepare for that type of purchase. And at the same time, I can begin to, I can refer them to different agents that can help them realize that dream. So I think that's one of the real benefits of the hybrid agent. And when you look at the way I think with COVID sort of changed a lot of that with the mortgage side and the real estate side, because we weren't having those face-to-face. Everything was Zoom or a Google Meet or something like that. On the mortgage side, you don't see so much people walking into brokerage. And so many of your big banks now are closing down their mortgage department. So they're going more to these brokerage firms. So, Rocket Mortgage is probably a big one right now, Quicken Loans. So I think that's an opportunity for your mortgage loan originators. But however, I see a synergy between the two, the real estate and the mortgage loan. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I think that we will probably begin to see more hybrid agents. I have seen lately where you'll have some big mortgage companies like Remax and Century 21 and Weichert that are actually looking to employ a mortgage loan originator in their branch, so that as buyers are coming in to purchase a house, they have their own mortgage loan originator in-house that they can refer their clients to. So it's a win-win for them because now they're getting both sides. So right. I don't see it as an additional burden. I see it more of this is a way to simplify the process for the client, whether it's a buyer or a seller.
Right, exactly. And I think it goes all the way back to the educational piece as well, where, now you have more information, right? Because getting your real estate license, it kind of just only talks more about the real estate side of things.
Yes.
Right. And then the mortgage license, now it's opening a new door into
right.
even more information into the same process. So now, right. Just even if, you were doing only one side of the business, now you have basically the entire roadmap of what can happen through this entire transaction in the back Correct. Of your mind, and you're able to help some people, you're able to help people better that way. So yes. That's really a good way to kind of go about things as well. And, maybe you can touch on a little bit, as a hybrid agent, because there's that law where you can't originate a loan for somebody who is, you're representing as a client, and, vice versa. So maybe how are some of the ways that you're able to monetize every lead that kind of comes your way with some referral partners that, are also in your area as well?
So currently I just have that experience. So the person who is sponsoring me into this brokerage firm, we've sort of worked out the deal that and he's also an EXP agent too, so he's a hybrid. We have agreed that if I pick up a listing or a buyer, or I will refer them to him for the loan, and vice versa. So recently, I just got this listing 3 weeks ago, and I had an open house last weekend, and the person who sponsored me, he was there for those 2 days, the mortgage loan originator. So anyone who wanted to talk about if they were looking at this house that I was listing, they could talk to him about perhaps, what they would need to qualify to purchase this house. So he was able to speak to a number of potential clients, and so he had that. So that's how we're looking at it, and vice versa, because we know that we have, in order to stay compliant, I can't do both. Yes. Yeah, so that's how I'm working it right now, but also working, outreach to other realtors that, let's talk about, how I can assist you with, with any referrals, because one of the things I have that I am experienced with the leads that I get as a real estate license, a lot of them are not what I would consider qualified leads, and I don't find that out until after they try to get a loan. So as a mortgage loan originator, I can say to the real estate agent, I have examined and reviewed all these applications of the referrals that you've sent to me, and I have ranked them so that you know how much time you should spend with, each of them. So if you send me 5 referrals, and out of the 5, only 3 of them really, have that credit score that they need, and the funds in order to, and the qualifications to be pre-approved for whatever that amount is. That's how I'm going to rank them, and I will give you that information so you know how to spend your time when you're looking to help them buy a home. So that's one of the benefits that I see as a mortgage loan originator that I can share with the real estate agent, because we don't get that as real estate agents. We just get these leads, and then after talking to them and then waiting for them to get their pre-approval, and we come back and you get a pre-approval for $190,000. I don't know what that'll buy you in Texas, but I will tell you it will not buy you anything in the state of New Jersey. So that's where I see the benefit. But again, you can't be wearing both hats when you do that. You have to decide which one you're going to do for that particular client.
Right, exactly. But it's really good. It's really good to have that, right? Like we just mentioned right now, because now when you're working with an agent who sends you a referral, you can come from the other perspective as well, and then be able to rank the actual leads based on their what they could buy, what they can't at the moment. And
Right.
then, you're able to, let the agent know, hey, these are the people you want to work with, maybe a little bit more on, this might be a longer term lead, and this might be, somebody that can really kind of go after their dream house right now. So
Right.
that's a really good, just having different perspective. It's really going to benefit you in whatever you're doing, and especially
Right.
in this business where there's a lot going on. So
Yes.
so yeah, one of the things I want to kind of get your take on as well is the marketing and different lead generation tactics that you're using. I know in the space, kind of in the real estate space right now, a lot of people are very obsessed with social media marketing. You kind of come from almost the complete opposite end of that stick, where you're not very active on social media at all, but you've been very, fairly successful in your first year, getting a lot of clients. So how have you been succeeding without using social media? I know this is an interesting question you don't really hear a lot of. So
Right. So I think the way I've been fortunate enough where they have been referrals. So I think that helps, is that word of mouth. Again, I think it's about relationships. People have always told me, and my husband would always tease me, is about, you have a sign on your forehead that says, "Please talk to me and tell me your problems." And I think more of it is just being a good listener. And I think that was just, with my training as being an educator, that we have to listen in order to help. It's not so much solving your problem, it's listening and helping you through the process of you solving that problem. Because if you want something, I will help you get to that place, but I can't do it for you. So, I always like to liken it to the medical field. It used to be you went to your physician and they gave you whatever the diagnosis is and you did XYZ. Well, now they always tell you you're part of this decision making as far as your wellness. And I think it's the same thing. Same thing has to be about economics and, wealth building now. Because wealth building it's not always just buying a house, but that's a great starting point as far as for folks to begin to start that pattern. And then, as far as investments and things like that. So, and it's not always just stocks and bonds, because we know that fluctuates at, going back and forth. But when you're buying property, especially if you're buying land does not depreciate. The property may, the structure may, but your land is never going to, depreciate. So it's having those conversations and always letting people know that they're part of this, this plan, this process. I'll walk that path down with you, but I can't do it by myself. I
Right.
can't do this for you. You have to, be there with me, but I will guide you on that. So I think that's how I engage. Like, for instance, a couple of weeks when I did my listing, I had to get some printouts. I wanted to get some printouts for, flyers for me and the mortgage loan originator. So on one side, it had my picture with all my information about the listing. And then on the flip side, it has his picture with all the information about getting the loan. So I was at the UPS store. The gentleman was printing out. He goes, "Oh, I really like this house, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "How much is it?" And I said, whatever the price was. And he says, I said, "Are you looking for a home?" He says, "Yes." He's looking for his sister. And that was another referral I picked up. So yes, I think social media has its place, but I think you have to be really adept at that right now. And as an educator, and that's just who I am. If I haven't perfected, I'm not going to go out there and just test, I have to, that's not the space that I'm in right now. And I don't think it's really hurt me. I'm sure it will help me over time. So I am looking at some other avenues right now on how to do that. Yes.
Right. And that's an awesome story. I think, just kind of printing out the flyer for
Yes.
a listing that you had, and then you got a lead from it, which is,
Yes. Yes.
it's something that agents don't really think about, especially because I think in this day and age, because it's so easy to build your own Facebook marketing page or just do something like that. A lot of agents are relying on social media, and they're trying to rely on something that they, like you said, they haven't perfected, and they don't really
Mm-hmm.
know how it works. And
Right.
they think it's working, but it's, they're not doing much of anything on there.
Right.
So I think it's very important to be, for somebody starting out, to be resourceful, like, just like that story of, talking to anybody kind of that you're meeting, and you're just in your
Right.
daily life, and
Mm-hmm.
just being able to offer them some support, some help, and some education and information, so that they'll be able to either become a client, or in this case become a referral, which
Referral.
is,
Yeah.
very overlooked, the referral side of things, I think,
Yes.
for a lot of
Yes.
people. So
Yes.
um yeah, being resourceful is very important. And then, just having the information out there, where putting yourself out there is, I guess that's not too much of an issue, right? Putting yourself out there and just starting
No.
conversations.
Right. No. Yeah. And it is. It's about starting those conversations, and then, sort of nurturing those conversations. It's interesting. Somebody, actually, it was my son who told me this morning. He says, he used to belong to fortune builders, and he says, one of the sayings was, "Your net worth is your network." I said, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that." So the people that you sort of surround with, and you're building, I guess, what we call in real estate, building your database, is always going back and you're sort of nurturing them, having those conversations. What does that look like? So,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, your network is very important. So, and it's, I mean, it's part of it, right? If you just go back to that same conversation, social media is just another way to build your network.
Hmm.
But some people are not doing it that way, and that's why they're not seeing the results. So it doesn't
Right.
matter what platform you're doing something on, the
Hmm.
principle behind it is the same, which is being able to deliver value and then being able to exchange ideas. And that's what a network is essentially, is an
Right.
exchange of ideas. So yeah, I mean, just kind of digging a little bit more into the decision you made in your first year to join EXP and join with us specifically, because I know kind of when we started talking, you were speaking with a couple different sponsors, different teams, and then fortunately, you decided to go with us, and we're grateful for it. So kind of going in that decision a little bit, what kind of prompted you to look more into the brokerage, and then what kind of prompted you to make the decision to partner with us, and how has that experience been essentially this year essentially?
Well, one of the things that drew me to eXp was the fact that it wasn't brick and mortar.
Right.
And I think, with the 2 years that we had with COVID, because I retired, I guess, when we were finishing up the second year of COVID, is I like that flexibility. And the fact that we had been doing everything on Zoom or Google
Right.
Meet, or that I thought, how, that was very advantageous, I believe, as, for company,
Right.
because you had so many people that were in the real estate, or, or whatever, they weren't able to go out there and show houses and things like that. So I thought, oh, this is great. I really like that. And then the flexibility of not knowing that I didn't have to produce so much a quarter or whatever and not be penalized for it.
Yeah.
I like that piece of it.
Yeah.
One of my daughters was with a company, and that was one of the things that she had told me about. And I thought, oh, I can't, I don't want to be pressured to do that. I'm
Right.
thinking, I'm retired. I don't want, I yes, I want to continue working, but I want to do it. I want some flexibility, that if I don't feel like producing, I'm not going to produce, do something else. So that was the biggest draw for me to eXp. The second one, the reason why I was looking at with with your team and your group, is I'm looking more for in the investment side, and that was more because of the whole financial literacy, is working with folks on showing them how real estate investment would help them grow their wealth. So those were my reasons for both joining eXp and then for this team.
Right. Yeah. We're super grateful to have you on, and you've been been doing great your first year, and we're happy to support support you in the investment side, and everything that you're doing as well. So just kind of wrapping the interview up a little bit here, and so you've done quite well in your first year, and I know a big goal of yours is to build your own real estate team at the end of the year.
I hope
So
so.
right, yeah, I
Yeah.
think you definitely can. I mean, you have a lot of great leadership qualities, right, based on just kind of your background and education.
Mhm.
So in saying that, what are some ways that you can assist and help other agents who want to be a part of your team and who want to work with you after they listen to this interview, or see one of our clips on YouTube, or somewhere else?
Mhm. So one of the things I would like to do, and as soon as I receive my license, and then I'm hoping that maybe we can come back and we can talk about the brokerage that I'm with,
Sure.
is to let them know that to just don't put themselves hold themselves just in real
Yeah.
estate, to see the whole continuum.
Yeah.
And that it means that they need to get some information on the whole mortgage loan inside of it. Because we're real estate, we're just looking at the laws as far as, and it was always about the customer, always about the buyer and the seller. Where on the mortgage loan side, you need to know about the federal laws and regulations. So Reg Z and Reg X, yes, they're there. But the biggest thing was the whole thing with the Dodd-Frank, what happened in 2008, that prompted all this. So, it wasn't, they didn't have licenses, mortgage loan originators, or what they called mortgage loan officers then, didn't have a license because they were under the charter of those banks. Well, now so the license came out after the 2008 with the whole craziness, Countrywide being one of the biggest offenders during that time of mortgage lenders. So now you have all these folks now that have to get the license. And I think, and the biggest thing was knowing the laws and knowing those regulations. So I think it's important for the real estate agents, not so much to know the law, but to understand the process for folks so that they could begin the conversation. Because I know when I took my class for the real estate license, the instructor was always cautioning us to not virtue into the loan side. And I disagree with that. I think it's important for real estate agents to understand, to communicate that information to their buyers, that these are the things that you need to be asked and to be cognizant about when you're looking for a purchase. And not to say to them, well, that's something you have to have a conversation with your loan officer about, because the loan officer may or may not may not always be acting in their best interest. I feel as real estate agents, we are always acting in our client's best interest. Whereas the mortgage loan officer, probably not, because we don't have that same type of relationship. We're just taking the application, but we're not always that face-to-face. You can, but it's not always necessary. But when you're a buyer's agent, you're with them a lot until you find that house and the offer's accepted. Whereas the mortgage loan, no, even though they don't get compensated until after the closing, they're not having those conversations with the actual applicant. So I think that's where I would like to come back and have that conversation on why it's so important that we beat that hybrid is. I think it's going to be part of the future, because I think it has to be, because quite frankly, I don't know, I have this feeling that perhaps it's going to be emerging. And when I say emerging, I think you're always going to be a need for a real estate agent. I don't know if there's always going to be a need for the mortgage loan originator, because if the real estate agent already has the client and they can provide them with the information, maybe I don't need two people. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And that's why I think the hybrid agent, to me, just makes sense. Because, but then, then we have to talk about with the whole thing with the regulations with RESPA. How does that work? And those are policy issues. So, that might have to be another conversation. But I could see that, and I think the fact that you have so many large banks right now that are closing their departments, I think there's going to have to be a conversation about that, because a lot of these folks who have left, don't actually have their license, so they're going to have a hard time going to a brokerage firm.
Right.
That's the only problem.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Yeah. We're definitely going to come back and have that conversation when you get your license and onboarded to your new brokerage firm.
Yeah.
I'd love to have that conversation as well. I was always wanted to bring a mortgage loan originator or a lender onto this call or onto this podcast. So, you'd be the perfect person to have on once,
That'd be great.
Right. Once you get that on. So we'll be in touch for that. And, listeners, be on the lookout for that episode as well. So just one last thing before we kind of wrap up here. For people that listen to this, or for anybody who's seeing this right now that want to reach out to you, whether they're an agent or, they want to learn more about the being a hybrid agent side of things, what are some, the best ways that they can reach out to you if, somebody wanted to be a part of your team and wanted to work with you?
So right now, I would just say email me at Debra, debra.sheard@gmail.com.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to leave all that information in the show notes. Yeah. In the show notes, the description. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna leave all that information below. So if you guys are interested in working with Deborah, make sure to check the description and the show notes below so that you guys can get her email and be in contact with her. Other than that, any last thoughts you want to leave here with the listeners and the audience here?
Oh, just want to say that this was great. It made me really begin to think about, wow, this is the decisions that I made for both real estate was a great decision. I don't regret that, and I do enjoy real estate. I really do. It's just that I think that there's a good convergence of the two.
Right,
And so I just want real estate agents to know that you don't have to make a choice between being a loan officer or being a real estate agent. You can do both. It's just that you would have to just make sure that you're always compliant. But that's even
right.
with real estate, we always have to make sure we're
Yeah,
compliant. So,
definitely. Awesome. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. It was a pleasure to
okay.
have you. You shared a lot
Oh,
of great
great. Thank you.
information. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
No,
right.
thank you. Yeah, and for the listeners tuning in, make sure that if you enjoy this, share it with somebody who would be able to get benefit any value from it. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to give it a 5-star review and a good rating. And other than that, thank you for tuning in. Deborah, thank you again for being on the show. And we'll see you
Okay.
guys next week.
All right. Take care.